Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. And a very special happy holidays and a happy new year. 2023 has been a crazy one, individually, societally, culturally, and even in terms of creative industries, with the WGA strikes and the SAG strikes, and the sort of general discontent around celebrity culture that recent events have inspired. But today I want to stay a little more superficial and take some time to do what a lot of other creators do at the end of the year, which is make a sort of wrap up and just talk about all the things I've seen this year. We're going to start with things that, came out in 2023, but if you want to stick around to the end, then I'll just talk a little bit about my opinions of some of my new favorites that I watched or I played for the first time this year, but didn't come out in 2023. And just a quick note before we delve into this whole thing, this is the end of my second year on YouTube, and I really want to try and connect with some more small creators. So if you have a channel where you make similar video essays about games, film, TV, and you have under 10,000 subscribers, please leave me a comment. I'd just love to interact with some more small creators as well as support them, watch more good video essays, and possibly collab with some people in the future. So if you're interested in that, please hit me up in the comments. Alright, anyways, let's get into it. So I really struggle to think of a time in the last couple of years that we've eaten this good when it comes to TV and film coming out. And so we'll start with a couple of TV shows. And of course, the first thing I'm going to talk about is Succession Barry Sunday, right? Succession as a whole has very quickly become one of my favorite pieces of media in the entire world. How could it not? And season 4 was a really beautiful and I felt was a really satisfying send-off for our main cast of characters. I can rarely think of a time in my entire life where I've been chomping at the bit more than watching Connor's wedding for the first time. We knew it was going to happen. I thought it was really clever that, it happened so early in the season and an episode with such a different name. Jesse talking about how episode 8 was going to be the craziest one, whatever. I thought that was really good deflection and made something that seemed like it wasn't going to be very shocking into something incredibly shocking. I think one of my favorite behind the scenes notes I've ever learned is the fact that they had Sarah Snook placed in a different place every take. So Jeremy had to survey the entire yacht to try to find Sarah as if he was Kendall, searching through this crowd. In general, shooting it all at one time, like sort of a piece of live theater. I know The Bear had a really big episode that lots of people really like that did that same sort of thing last year, but I still have not watched that. So many things came to a beautiful close so nicely. The only thing I probably selfishly am upset about is the ending between Connor and Willa, just because things really seemed like they were going good for them, and I was kind of hoping that we were going to have one couple or one person that sort of came out of this at least slightly unscathed, but I guess in reality that's not possible, and so that ending kind of proved it. I felt a very similar way in terms of full arc satisfaction in the last season of Barry, while also, again, being incredibly shocked basically every episode. Obviously, it's very different from something like Succession. I feel like when it comes to the sort of twists or shocking moments in Succession, once you go back throughout the series, you can always see that the seeds, were planted there, much more grounded and realistic, and I would say specifically character-focused in that way. With Barry, I think Bill Hader just really wanted to keep you on your fucking toes, and it worked. Barry is one of those things, especially this last season, that a lot of good media, the point of it is to start a conversation, to have more questions and more things to say. Whereas I felt like Barry is one of those, works of art where it says everything. Why do I need to say anything? It already said it. It already showed it. You already felt it. And that's really powerful to be able to do that at all, let alone on TV, let alone in 30-minute chunks with genuinely really funny bits in between. It's been so incredible to see Bill Hader come into his own like this, and I think this was a wonderful conclusion to a really fun experiment and, sort of training or, jumping off platform for Bill Hader's future work. Another thing that came out this year that I feel like it came out last year, but it wasn't, was Swarm, which I thought was fucking incredible. And I was really kind of sad to see the lack of buzz, no pun intended, around it. Dominique Fishback's performance is just one of those things that, like, I genuinely have no words for. And I think, honestly, transcends the material, especially when you hear about the way that Donald Glover wanted her to be portrayed in this sort of very animalistic vein. I think Dominique gave Dre a gravitas and a humanity in a way that the writing was not ultimately asking for, and I'm really glad that that's the case. This so came off as like an autistic allegory for me, as somebody that reads autistic allegories into fucking everything, but this especially, I mean, the fundamental otherness, especially in like female social circles. And it was also cool to see Billy act, and she wasn't nearly as bad as I was expecting her to be. She was actually kind of good. The Curse. Again, talk about something I'm sad that there isn't as much buzz around, and I think that's because not a lot of people have Paramount Plus, but I mean, Nathan Fielder fucking strikes again, bro. This thing is incredible. It makes me nauseous the entire time I'm watching it, the amount of tension that just churns and fuels every moment. And I mean, I know it's building to something. I hope it's good. I'm expecting it's gonna be good. And again, talking about somebody where we haven't really seen them in a dramatic role before is Nathan, and I think his performance has been really incredible. And like, I was talking about it with my dad, and he was saying, well, you can't do what Nathan has done in the past without being a good actor. And I thought that was a very interesting perspective on that. And while I agree with that, at the same time, I just think it's really cool to be able to see Nathan genuinely portraying another character and doing a real job at it, especially standing up next to, you know, fucking Emma Stone, who is one of the greatest actresses of our time. While I haven't really delved into the world of the Safdies yet, I heard from the people that are watching The Curse that this is a really wonderful merging of their and Nathan's oeuvres, and this is certainly making me excited to go and, you know, watch Good Time. And lastly are the fucking Doctor Who specials. It was lovely to see David Tennant back again. Same thing with Catherine Tate. I think I'm even more excited about Russell being back than the two of them, especially because, you know, he's transferring over. I mean, the first episode was so beautiful. It certainly meant a lot to me as a trans person to see those sorts of conversations between Donna and Sylvia. And while I've heard a lot of trans people do not like the binary, non-binary ending, I don't know. There was something about it to me that felt really real and powerful. I don't normally feel that like that about trans representation in general, so that was really comforting to feel, especially coming from something that like has meant so much for me for so long, like Doctor Who. The second episode was really cool. I certainly thought it was more of like an episode than it was a special. And the finale, while I'm not really a huge fan of NPH for a variety of reasons, cue the Amy Winehouse cake, I thought some of the stuff with the Toymaker was really fun. But I mean, really, the most important stuff there was the last 20 minutes. The bi-regeneration had been spoiled for me a million years ago, but it came out to be fucking perfect. So much better than I was expecting. I saw someone comment on some post after it saying it was really good execution of a bad concept, and I think that's, you know, perfectly well said. And I mean, from the moment that Ncuti came on screen, I had already fallen in love with him. You know, talk about love at first sight. He is totally shaping up to be one of my favorite doctors, and especially now that we have this sort of healed doctor, this comforting doctor. I again read somewhere that he was talking about how hopeless he had been feeling looking at all the fucking shit that's going on in the world right now, and realized how important it was for, you know, a character like the Doctor to be this, you know, beacon of hope and healing. And from the first few moments we saw of him on screen, I think he's incredibly successful in doing so. If he was able to literally cheer up his past self in the way that he did, you know, I think it'll be pretty easy for all of us. And so it's like, how can I not talk about Barbenheimer? Obviously, sorry, I'm a dumb liberal white feminist that actually liked Barbie. I thought it was really fun. It's gonna become a new classic. There's no fucking way it's not. I think it had a really nice blend of all for the family humor that's not just like making sexual jokes that kids won't understand. There are funny references. And I think there's like a good sort of family-friendly approach to what adult life is like. I think it does about as good of a job as a Hollywood blockbuster could do for trying to explain and understand what the gender gap is. And is there any better casting in the entire world than Margot Robbie being Barbie? I don't think so. And my last note about Barbie is the fact that I still feel really bad that the most enjoyable part of it was the man. And on the flip side, we have Oppenheimer, which, like The Curse, made me want to throw up the entire time, and I'm so glad that that was the case. I was actually really surprised at, like, the lack of knowledge that I had at sort of the, no pun intended, fallout in sort of the connection from World War II to McCarthyism to the Cold War. I think Oppenheimer illuminated that in a very clear-cut way, which I appreciated. It's gonna be really surprising if Cillian doesn't get the Oscar for this. I really wish that the Oscars had an ensemble category for something like this. In general, Nolan is somebody that I feel like isn't empathetic enough in his work. There's sort of a disconnect there, and this was a film, maybe because of him literally writing the script in first person, which is fucking crazy. This is the first film of his I've seen where I felt fully sort of locked in to the empathy of the situation all around. And speaking of powerful, was fucking Killers of the Flower Moon. Jesus Christ. I literally cried through the entire thing, which I was not expecting to do. It was also my first Scorsese picture in a theater, which is kind of insane as an Italian film nerd. It felt like a privilege to be able to see that on a big screen. It also felt like a privilege to have Lily Gladstone grace our screens with that. I'm saying gravitas a lot, but just sort of stalwart gravitas and true understanding and connection in oneself. It's really good to know, you know, the ways that Scorsese was able to work with the Osage tribe. I've learned a number of things of, like, that guy doing that awesome speech. That's just him fucking improvising it. You know, there's improv between Lily and Leo. So it just feels like that set and that environment was a really healthy and understanding place for everybody to come and, you know, get their work done. And then one that's, you know, on a much smaller than a lot of these, but one that, again, I was basically crying or laughing throughout every single minute of it was The Holdovers. That felt like it's going to become, like, you know, a new Christmas classic for me. It was so personal. It was so raw, but it had such a heart, but it was also so funny in such a genuinely cynical way, and I think really spoke to a lot of the feelings that we have in general at the holiday season, and I think sort of illuminated a connection I've been thinking about a lot in the sort of similarities of the cultural air of the 1970s and the 2020s. I think all of us who sort of have an empathetic or a rational head on our shoulders are just looking around and going, are you fucking kidding me? What is this? This has to stop. And it sort of answered that question with show kindness, show love, be with the people in your life, try to understand them, try to do your best, and that's all you can do as an individual person. And then, of course, came fucking Saltburn. I still haven't seen Promising Young Woman because I feel like I'm gonna fucking hate it as someone that has incredibly stringent opinions about how sexual violence is portrayed in media. But I gave Emerald the benefit of the doubt when saw this. We saw it for my mom's birthday. We were the only two people in the theater. What an experience. I think, honestly, the perfect way to see it on, you know, a giant screen, but you can talk as loud and as much as you want to. Every shot a painting. I could look at Jacob Elordi doing anything. His two big performances this year were both fucking incredible. On top of all of these extremities, I thought by showing all of these extremities, it had a lot of really interesting things to say about the middle class, about average people. And last but not least was May December, always down for a Todd Haynes flick, and this was another fucking incredible one. Really great performances across the board, and I think fundamentally the thing I appreciated it so much about it was it's one of the most, like, again, subtly, but visually cohesive films, and just cohesive films I've ever seen. Every single thing, every shot, every prop, every word, every look ties back into these themes of performance, of growing up, you know, age, predation versus love, intergenerational trauma, what your parents give to you. So many symbols throughout, you know, the butterflies, the cigarettes, the dress, all this stuff about eating. And to wrap up 2023, just a couple of sort of miscellaneous things. Generally, I'm not a guy that plays games right when they come out, so I'm just now getting to the Resident Evil 4 remake, but holy fuck, is this incredible. I really started to fall in love with Leon through the Resident Evil 2 remake, which I also played for the first time this year, and had known throughout my life how iconic a game like Resident Evil 4 was, and it seems like they did an incredible job being able to not only capture the feel of the original game, but expanding it and just, God, making it look so beautiful and move so nicely. And as I've talked about on the channel before, I think they improve on the RE engine with every game they make, and this is no exception. And so I'll probably have more to say about this once I've actually finished it. Good. Did not actually get to see him live. I'm out. I wanted to see this because we thought it was going to be interesting, on top of the fact that David Tennant was in it. It was fucking incredible. It was just gobsmacking. And I think, like what Zone of Interest will probably be, did a beautiful job of the sort of story where you're watching someone turn into someone that they never thought they were going to be, and you know, they do it so slowly and so subtly that you, while empathizing with that character, also can't find that moment, you know, almost a sort of Ship of Theseus thing. And I think that's a really poignant message to be putting across right now, which is one of the reasons why I think we're seeing a lot of, you know, Holocaust-y, Second World War-y stuff, reminding us that silence is complicity, and it takes very small, you know, very menial measures to turn someone into an enemy. And lastly, I just want to talk about some things that are internet-based that, you know, I really enjoyed this year. And so first off is the Deckart Games stream on Twitch. Brian Deckart and Amelia Rose Blair, they're both actors. I bet a lot of people who watch this channel would know from Detroit Become Human. I've been subscribed to them on stream for a couple of years now, and just as every year goes by, I love them more and more, and I feel so blessed to be part of such a positive and heartwarming and cozy little community on our little corner of the internet. They play a lot of games, but it's always really fun to see what else they have in store. They've been doing this Good Mammal stream, which is all about like self-improvement and talking through a lot of therapy techniques and self-image and having a routine. They did the Deckart Games Club, which actually I think was last year, but it's, you know, like a book club but with games. They're just like a really lovely part of my week. They stream 4 times every week, and so they've been such a lovely touchstone and somewhere to just go and unwind and talk to some people, and I am grateful for them in that space every year.
Yeah, like Miles, for instance, has a 1 next to Miles' name, so Miles Mem believes we will stay alive for 50 minutes, which says more about Miles than it does about me.
And over on TikTok, I want to sort of highlight probably my favorite account, which is Stories About Autism. And it's run by a guy who's a father and a carer to his 2 autistic sons. One is 15 and one is 11 or 12, I think. And in the sort of never-ending social media world of autism moms and cures and ableist people that want to take you down, that think they love their kids and are actually doing things to hurt their kids and think that you're an asshole for trying to tell them, etc., etc. It just is really heartwarming and validating to see a guy like this being honest about his struggles in the past and sharing what he's learned and how he's learned it, and just like loving and accepting his kids for who they are. And by doing that pushes them to learn more and grow more and be able to do more than they could before. And that's something that has been very important to me this year as an autistic person, that's sort of realizing the severity of his needs, is that like by having a place where you can feel safe and accepted and be able to understand yourself, that's when you're going to be able to do the things that felt hard or impossible previously. And lastly, back on YouTube, but actually actually kind of everywhere, is Allison Stoner's Dear Hollywood podcast. Something that I and many other people didn't know they needed, but very much needed. As someone that is totally an armchair psychologist and is very interested in both social justice for marginalized people and the comings and goings of the entertainment industry and the celebrity world, their podcast just sort of hit all of those things in one place, and they delivered so much information, so many stories, things from their own life in such an educated and just clear and concise an understanding way. And they even had a little trouble where they were sponsored by BetterHelp, and a bunch of people were telling them BetterHelp sucks, and they responded to that really nicely. And I just think that's something that if anybody out there is interested in child actors and just in general about the welfare of children in the entertainment industry, if you yourself or your children are planning on getting in the entertainment industry, I think this is the first place you should go to understand the realities of what it actually means to be a child performer. All right, and that's it for 2023. So if that's all you wanted to see, then have a lovely new year, and I hope to see you in 2024. But just to talk about some things that I watched or played this year that didn't come out in 2023. Stray, of course, which only came out last year, but still. So adorable, so much fun. Another thing that I fucking cried at, which I was totally not expecting at the beginning of the game. It really took fun, cute cat cyberpunk simulator and turned it into a really amazing story about rising up against injustice, and small positive actions can ripple across a world and create meaningful change. And also, of course, it's just fucking adorable, and I love robots. I also played Last Stop, which I'm still debating whether or not this actually should have been a game at all, because it was just so heavily narratively focused, and really even more than something like Detroit or Life is Strange was an interactive movie. But I still had a really fun time and did enjoy delving into each of the stories. There were certainly twists and turns that I wasn't expecting. I wished that there was a little bit more interactivity, but I thought that all of the sort of mini games that they put you through were really entertaining, and I was not expecting the way that it wrapped up, but I thought it did a much better job of wrapping up the whole mystery than it actually seemed like it was going to at first. And then Vampyr, I'm just gonna call it Vampyr. There will most certainly be videos about this on the channel within the next year. Don't you worry if you're a Vampyr fan, because it seems like there's a whole 5 of us out there. This had been on my list for quite a while, since it's a Don't Nod game, and it had been on PS Now and PlayStation Plus, and so I finally got around to playing it. It certainly drags in the first couple of hours, but holy shit, once you get into it, I thought it was such an amazing story with so many characters and so many little things to delve into, and a lot of interesting mechanics, and just different ways that all of these different aspects came together in terms of how the action came into consideration with the choice making and etc. Certainly got a little more pretentious than I would like at times, and the ending I'm still not totally sure about, but overall it felt good to play a game that took itself that seriously and really tried to sort of elevate it above what the normal action RPG is. And I was really glad to see that come from somewhere like Don't Nod, because I love Life is Strange so much, but it isn't very much of a game. And I think that this did a pretty good job of balancing the mystery, intrigue, character building parts with the I'm gonna go and beat people up and suck their blood parts. And since I've already talked about Evil Within 2 and Resident Evil 2 on this channel, I'm just gonna skip those for now, even though they were really good. And the last game I want to talk about is Assassin's Creed Origins. Oh my god, I've never played an Assassin's Creed game before. Tried a little bit of 2, wasn't very into it, but the franchise has been in my space for a while, and since this is on PlayStation Plus, I've finally gotten around to playing it, and I have just fallen in love. As a kid whose first special interest was ancient Egypt and mummies and all that sort of stuff, It's so incredible to like feel like you're actually in this world and be able to see all of this stuff, you know, happening around you as if you were there. And at the same time, I think it does a very good job of putting you in that place and reminding you of how immense the, you know, Empire of Egypt was and sort of how long-standing it was. A lot of places you go are ancient and decrepit. Traditions are long-standing at this point. That's something that a lot of sort of ancient Egypt-y stuff fails to mention, on top of the fact that it's just like really fun to like run around in the desert and ride a camel or, you know, shoot some people with your hunter's bow or whatever. I'm like getting way more into the story than I was expecting to. I really just wanted to play this as sort of me being an Egypt simulator, and I am loving the campaign, and I'm thinking of maybe making a Last of Us Part 2 versus Assassin's Creed Origins about the revenge quest that Bayek and Aya are on. I wasn't expecting it to grab me emotionally, and it really is, and so I'm interested to see where that ends up. I had never seen Cape Fear before and ended up watching both the remake and the original. It's seriously one of the craziest fucking things I've ever seen in my entire life. And I just found that like the filmic language of it, it's so simple and it's so effective. It just pulling the rug out from under you every single fucking second. I mean, again, I was talking about with the curse earlier, this building tension. Cape Fear is literally the fucking helicopter scene in Goodfellas. The entire fucking movie, and it never lets up. I just find it so incredible that, like, you know, the color shifts that happen and the lighting shifts, they make you feel like a crazy person, and it's such an easy, tiny thing that just makes you feel fucking crazy. And then another thing I hadn't seen before that has been on my list for a million years is Gone Girl. I'm sad that I kind of knew the rough plot of everything beforehand, but at the same time, that kind of gives you, you know, a dramatic irony about the first half of the film rather than that happening for the second half of the film. And I'm just a huge fucking Gillian Flynn fan. Her work is amazing and captures just a raw feeling that I've never seen anybody else be able to capture before. And Fincher and Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross did a beautiful job of creating that environment in real life. All right, and last but not least is good old Michael Clayton. I had actually seen this before. My dad showed it to me when I was very young, when I was like in middle school, I think, and I didn't remember it very well, and then we watched it for his birthday this year, and, you know, Succession was the first thing I talked about, and I think I was blown away with this in general, but I think especially because I've been stuck in the Succession headspace for so long, I've been wanting to find something that hits that same dramedy, satirical thing, and I think Michael Clayton is it. It does a really good job of so incredibly dryly blackest of humor, and, you know, on top of all of that, I thought it was a really poignant and accurate exploration of mental illness, not demonized. I like the phrase not justified but explained, and I think that this is a film that does a very good job of not justifying but explaining why people do certain things. And the fucking horses scene. All right, and with that comes the end of my little 2023 wrap-up. Thank you so much for 1,000 subscribers. I hit that this year, and thank you all for the love, the views, comments, like anything. I appreciate so much, especially the couple of people that keep coming back for every video I've been making. It really means a lot and feels really cool that I have a very small, but still, you know, a community of people that are interested in this channel and what I have to say. I wouldn't be able to do this without people like that, and so I'm so thankful for the people, you know, that have stuck around. And lastly, I think you just kind of can't talk about this year without talking about the genocide. And so I want to make sure that not only is that acknowledged, but that I'll have resources in the description for you to be able to help the people in Palestine and Gaza affected by the genocide. Happy New Year and free Palestine.